Good day. This is again Karin from Marle. And in this session, we're going to talk about reading and the research problem. So maybe just before we talk about reading, let's say a few things about the research problem. The research problem corresponds in a way to the what question. So if someone might ask you, what is your mini dissertation on? What are you writing about? The research problem is the answer to that what question. Or if we want to again connect with the journey metaphor, the research problem is where are you going on this journey? So to a certain extent, once you've addressed the research problem, you would have reached the destination of your journey. So what is the research problem? The research problem relates the research topic to the main objective of the project. For example, it is the question to answer, the point to prove, or the aspects to discuss. It's also the problem to solve. So you need to focus on what it is that you want to do or achieve in the project, and you should phrase the problem in terms of something you want to achieve. Where do you start reading? There are a number of possibilities. You can start at the most recent source, the most comprehensive source, the most important or authoritative source, or the source that illustrates the issues best. Some practical hints. Probably wise to consult South African sources before you go to foreign sources. You need to decide. Probably first legislation, then cases, then case commentaries, maybe textbooks before you go to journal articles, but these before you go to case law legislation. And at this stage, you may make use of some student texts or LAWSA that could provide a basic exposition before you enter the theoretical discussions. But remember, these texts should not go into your bibliography. They're merely there for your initial reading, to really show you something about the journey or the road that you want to take, the place where you might want to go. So as a starting point, look for the sources that give a broad overview of the literature, or that already does some of the analysis and mapping for you. Be very aware of context. Timelines, who was first, but schools and movements, who belong together, the different approaches, who differs from or criticizes whom. Also, your critical red line occurrences, for example, new legislation or a highly controversial article or decision that opened up or changed or maybe killed debate. We distinguish between two types of reading, wide reading and close reading. So, what do we mean with wide reading? That's that quick, superficial scan reading of sources. And it's aimed at obtaining an overview of all the issues discussed in literature, the different views and opinions, further sources, focus. What is important? Who is authoritative? And also the most recent position. So what to get out of this wide reading? You need to start with a discourse map. You need to map the discourse in order to obtain an overview of all the literature, so that you can identify all the issues. Show that you understand the various authorities and views, that you in this stage already include your references to additional literature, and really start collecting materials and drafting the preliminary bibliography. Important again here to read according to a reading schedule. If you look at the close reading, this is required for narrowing down a topic after your initial wide reading, and then your focused reading for each of the chapters of your dissertation. You can do this only when you are already familiar with the literature and the debates, the authorities, the controversies, so that you can now read only the important authorities on the narrow topic. Focus on one particular aspect or topic, do your close or detailed analysis, make notes, tables, mind maps, or even an annotated bibliography. At this point, you should be able to distinguish issues and various viewpoints, to contrast and evaluate different opinions and arguments, and again, to answer these questions. Who is authoritative on what? What is most recent? Some notes on the developments of schools or trends. What is regarded as open or problematic in the literature and why? Based on your wide reading, and followed by your close reading and mapping, you should be able to answer the following question. Is your analysis informed by the latest, most recent position, or has it been overtaken by time and later developments? And does your analysis of the central literature on which your research problem and conclusions rest correctly reflect the range of materials and views on the issue? Updating is important, particularly if it's a long-term research project. Your older work gets dated, so you need to add new literature and new developments. How to deal with updates? You cannot continually update. That will slow down your progress. Do not rewrite and update completed chapters continually, but keep track of new developments as you become aware of them and develop a system that will work for you. Again, plan for updating. When you update, check again for new materials and do one thorough update per chapter or section, and again when finalizing the thesis. Let's say a few things about the literature overview or discourse mapping. Discourse map is an important reading tool, especially if sources and debates are complex. You should find a good way to summarize or to reflect on the overall position of the issues, the views and arguments in the field. You can use a spider map or any kind of summary that would work for you. But the discourse map requires a comprehensive overview of all the important sources. It may not be necessary to read all of them equally closely. So note here, it's not always necessary or possible to explain or set out the whole discourse analysis or map in your study, even though you had to work it out in detail to understand the situation. But in other cases it will be necessary, or it may even be the core of the study. You must be able to show where your work fits in on the big map. So the discourse map requires insight into the differences between the sources. And these are the questions that we also asked when you did your close reading. You should be able to indicate which are the really important authors or sources or decisions, which are the opposing or differing authors and schools or approaches. How and why do they differ? And you should be as precise as possible. Can you relate different positions to underlying theoretical stances? Who follows whom? Who criticizes whom? What are the implications of the different positions? Where do you stand and why? Can you motivate your position? What are the implications for your study? How do you use or explain or reflect this in your thesis or dissertation. And we want to suggest that you take some time now to draft a preliminary or tentative discourse map before you continue with the rest of the session. Maybe just again something on the research problem. We've said in the beginning, the research problem relates the research topic to the main objective. So it is the question that you want to answer, the point that you want to prove, the aspects to discuss, and the problem to solve. You need to focus on what it is what you want to do or achieve in the project and phrase the problem in terms of something you want to achieve. By focusing on your discourse map and the overview of the literature, you should be able to find or at least start to formulate the research problem. You can do it in one of two ways. Either it's a short paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences, or you can do it in bullets before you ideally then put it into a paragraph. Each sentence or bullet states one aspect of the overall problem. Start off with the overall problem and then break it down into sub-problems or issues if necessary. And remember, the points are not random. They build on each other and progress or develop according to the logic of the project. Maybe a question just, where does the research problem fit in? For now, your concern will be the research proposal. So in the research proposal, that is covered in the next session, you should describe the research problem briefly but very clearly in the beginning. The main body of the research proposal, specifically under the heading motivation or rationale, should also show how the research problem features in the whole of the research project. For example, where in which chapter. But the research problem will also be central again in your thesis or dissertation once you start writing after completing the proposal. So in a thesis or dissertation, the research problem is again set out and described, justified, etc. Usually in chapter 1, the introduction, showing how and where it features in the research work. But the research problem or aspects of it may also feature again in individual chapters. In the conclusion, you come back to the research problem to show how it featured in the project and how it fits into the result. So the aim behind this session was to talk about reading, discourse mapping, and to show you how you can only formulate a research problem after doing a lot of reading and after obtaining a broad overview of the literature. Continue now and work on the discourse map.